Happy New Year. I hope you're listening to this on the new year. Things always feel a little bit different and also exactly the same. But as a woman with super traits, there's always a little hope. There's always intentionality. There's always a desire for more. And I love that about us. And I wanted to thank you all for being here. The past 2 years, especially this past year, has been both deeply personal and profoundly transformative for me. The year of the snake, whew. Talk about the number of layers that I shed. I don't really drink wine anymore. If I do, I drink Riesling now. Who am I? I don't wear makeup or jewelry or get my nails done. I'm letting the gray come through my hair. We'll see if that one lasts. I'm a sucker for a bright blonde, but we're experimenting. We're trying. How can we know if we like something if we don't try it? Okay, but I'm softening. I'm buttering you up for the heavy shit. What I've lived through, the harassment, the stalking, has changed how I understand pleasure and what actually needs to happen for us to have health and happiness. What protects our bodies, our pleasures, our desires. The Pink Canary named the first truth, the pleasure problem, anhedonia. What I'm teaching you this year is what I learned next. So for those of you that stayed as my work evolved, you're a real one. As I've delivered some of the harder truths, some of the reasons why, as women with super traits, we get stuck in loops, I've learned things, some of these lessons so brutally, so you don't have to. They were blind spots for me, blind spots from the hundreds of thousands I spent in personal and professional development. And I'm really glad you're here for what comes next. Book number 2. And I'm going to tell you more about that. I'm Dr. Jordan Wiggins, naturopathic doctor, author, coercive control clinician, and dominatrix trained pleasure strategist. If you're listening, you've likely been the glue, the anchor, the fixer, the doer. These aren't flaws, they're super traits. They're qualities that make you exceptional, capable, relatable, successful, and they're also the traits that turned into survival. You start overgiving in relationships and situations that don't give back, and we put the onus on ourselves to fix it. Eventually, our body says enough. And 2026 is the year where we do less, and we do less with intention. So I wrote The Pink Canary in 2019. I've been podcasting since 2020, and I have learned some things that I was given, some things that I spent hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure out when I couldn't fix my relationship, when the same patterns started repeating in my second relationship. And I know there's many of you out there already divorced, thinking, don't want to make the same mistake again, or in a new relationship thinking, fuck, the same things are happening again. So when I wrote The Pink Canary in 2019, I believed pleasure was the missing piece. Pleasure matters. It changes bodies, it restores desire, it brings us back to ourselves. And I watched it work again and again. And there was a pattern that I couldn't ignore. Women could reconnect to their pleasure. We would soften, Our desires would return. We would laugh again. We would dance in the kitchen. We would want to have sex, want to give blowjobs. And then the moment, one moment of tension, one disappointed look, one shift in somebody's tone, one relational rupture, everything collapses. Superwomen, hypervigilant, overgiving traits on steroids. If you do not know what your super traits are, head to the show notes and take the super trait quiz. It will take you 3 minutes. And please respond back to your results email, and I will give you all of your super traits because you probably have more than just one. So, my solution to this problem was to pleasure harder, essentially, to work harder as any superwoman would. What I didn't fully understand then, and what I understand now, is that we don't really have pleasure if the moment we are under stress or tension, everything collapses. We don't really have pleasure. Pleasure can't survive in relationships where you're required to manage the connection. The problem was never us. The problem, and what I wasn't looking at, because I was approaching the pleasure problem like a superwoman, like, what's the problem? How can we fix it? What's in my control? How am I going to move mountains to make this happen? Just like many of you approach every facet of your life with your superwoman cape on, and you're crusty, and your health has suffered for it. Your relationships have suffered for it. The problem is that we were rewarded. We were conditioned from childhood onward to hold the emotional weight, to maintain harmony and absorb discomfort so others don't have to. We are the shock absorber. So when pressure enters the room, your body does exactly what it was trained to do: shut down pleasure and overfunction. Our body learned at a very young age that having connection meant we needed to overgive, where we needed to work hard, be loyal, tolerate, fix, endure. And our body's smart. Our desire, our joy, our turn on goes away when we don't feel safe. It goes away when things don't feel reciprocal. Not because something's wrong, but because our body has adapted and is smart. And it's adapted to a structure where meaning came from endurance, not reciprocity. So this book number 2, which does not have a title yet, and this work is what came after this realization. It names the system that taught us our super traits, that became our survival strategies. It explains why pleasure collapses under pressure. And it gives you the missing pathway, not just to feel pleasure again, but to keep it online when life applies stress. So I want to introduce you to the receiver identity, the identity that I wish for all of you. A receiver is the opposite of an overfunctioner, a people pleaser, a doer, a giver. Okay? And this is one of the things that I want you all to know is your super traits make you who you are, and they make you amazing. And they make you really lonely, and they make you sick. Because when we do not feel met in relationships, loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. When we give and we don't get back, it's a problem for health, wealth, and love. So I want to talk to you about receiver and introduce you to this concept, because this is where we're going to go. This is where I'm going to help lead you. Okay, so a receiver can say no without guilt. A receiver can say, yes, more please. She can let someone be disappointed in her without abandoning herself. She doesn't manage the room. Do you know how much space I have in my life now that I give so many less fucks about how everyone is feeling at every single moment in time. Just to have that burden, to have those ruminating thoughts, that tape doesn't play anymore. A receiver doesn't preempt reactions. She's not thinking 10 steps ahead. I mean, unless she wants to, because she's a brilliant strategist. But she's not thinking 10 steps ahead to manage how everybody feels at all times, or to make sure that none of our loved ones or our bosses get upset, or our employees, our kids. She doesn't soften her truth or desires to keep the peace. She speaks them. She stays turned on, even when there's stress, even when there's conflict, even when there's unfinished laundry, unfinished items on the to-do list. Her desire doesn't depend on everything being calm, clean, complete, being connected with everyone. It's in her. Receiving isn't passive. Being a true receiver is having regulated authority. And we were never taught how to have authority without overfunctioning, without overgiving. We can do all the work in the world, the therapy, the books, the communication tools, the hormone panels, counting our macros, seeing different specialists. But until we have the tools to transform our super trait identity that believes love must be earned through contribution, nothing actually is ever going to change. If your work is tied to how much you give, how well you manage, how smoothly you keep things going for everybody else. So our attention is always out. This is why when I ask a superwoman what she feels, what she desires, how does she stay centered in conflict? How does she say no? I was actually given some advice from a Christmas party. I've had a hell of a week, PMSing. It's right before Christmas. Lots of legal abuse happening to me at the moment when I'm trying to defend myself against my abuser. And so this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about is, can I access pleasure under pressure? If the whole room is burning around me, can I stay grounded? Can I stay centered? Can I stay and act with my turn on, with my power, my authority? And I fucking can now. And that's what I want to teach you how to do. So we're going to go on a fun ride this year. We're going to get a book. We're going to give you lots of information because the world needs this now. When we have super traits, our body never fully rests. And this is why our health suffers. And this is why I came through this from women's healthcare from 13 or maybe even 14 years now. I need to count all these years because the Pink Canary's 5 years old in March, 6 years old in March. Oh my goodness. And the podcast is 5 years old, 6 years old. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I forget how old I am. So this time in chronological years is not for me. It just doesn't stick in my brain. So this is the year our high achiever, our superwoman cape loosens. Over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about why communicating more hasn't helped and you actually need to communicate less. How stress brings the old patterns roaring back. Why we collapse in those moments of tension when people are disappointed in us. It's not a failure, it's an adaptation, and I'm going to teach you what to do about it. And none of this is to fix you or change you, but is to help you see yourself clearly, without shame, without self-abandonment, so that you can actually take action towards the things you say you want. If you're here because trying harder stopped working, it's not a problem, it's clarity. This is the year you stop high achieving. You stop managing and working so hard for connection and outcomes. It's the year you learn how to actually be met in vulnerable connection and true intimacy that you didn't have to overgive and overfunction to have. You don't need to become better at relationships. You don't need to become better at sex. You don't need to even necessarily work harder at your health. You need the pleasure-centered method, a structured body-based framework designed to help high-functioning women whose super traits were rewarded. We move through 3 phases. And the first is deconditioning. This is the one that I talked about that I missed. This is where we identify your exact patterns in your body that you learned that in order to stay connected, we needed to overfunction, manage, collapse when people were disappointed in us and work hard to get that connection back. Okay, we're going to do that not by trying harder, not by superwomaning it, but by removing that reflex to disappear, to overgive. Okay, and only then can we restore pleasure, and only then can we learn to receive, which are the steps on the path. And that is when it gets so fun and so juicy. Welcome to the year of receiving.